Alright, so recently I've noticed an unwritten rule almost all industry producers follow, which explains why their beats and samples sound so good and how they can make so many. So if you've been struggling to keep up with the work rate of other producers or fallen victim to the dreaded beat block, I promise you this will be the most important video you've watched in a minute. So let me set the scene, man. You've just started making a beat, perhaps you've got some chords down and a basic melodic idea. You've been messing around trying to build on this core idea, but nothing's sounding good, nothing's flowing, and you just can't seem to be able to finish it. It's at this point you start to get frustrated with the idea and decide to save it, telling yourself you'll come back to it later.
Later. 2,000 years later.
Now it's safe to say that idea sat on the hard drive forever. Making the idea gave you the illusion of satisfaction and productivity, but it didn't actually move the needle towards your goals. So this brings me back to the industry rule that I spoke about at the start of the video. Finish every idea. And I know, man, following this rule is a lot easier said than done. The next time you go to save something that you haven't finished, this is exactly what you're going to do. The first and easiest thing that you're going to try is throwing on a mixer preset. It might sound simple, but don't underestimate the power of doing this, man. The other day I was filming a raw cookup and got stuck on this idea. Let's change this to something else. I've got some chords and a basic melody, but I was struggling to build off it. As you can see, I'm clicking through Omnisphere presets to try and find something that is a bit more inspiring, but nothing was working until I dragged in one of my mixer presets, which flipped and reversed the idea completely, turning it into this. Now this helped me to get back on track, got some ideas flowing, and within about 15 minutes, I'd added a piano, a bass, and some strings, which had the sample sounding like this. And that was all from the inspiration of that one preset, which is why I highly recommend getting into the habit of saving your mixer presets. If you don't know how, all you have to do is right click here, click on this save mixer preset button, name it, and then it's there for you to recall whenever. Now, if you can't be bothered to do this and create them yourself, or you just want some high quality ones to get you started, I've decided to bundle 50 of my own personal favorite creative mixer presets into a kit for you guys. And for the next 72 hours, you can grab it from the top link in the description for only $7. Less than the price of your morning coffee, so definitely go check that out. Regardless of whether you cop or not, make sure you're not sleeping on the effectiveness of mixer presets. They come in clutch when you're feeling uninspired and need to get the idea finished. Now let's say you're in a slightly different scenario and you've got some chords that you're really happy with, but you're struggling to come up with a melody on top. One simple technique that I find myself using all the time is to simply arpeggiate these chords. Oftentimes this actually helps you create a melody on top without using any brain power. There's 3 different ways that we can arpeggiate these chords. Obviously we can do it manually like this. We can use the built-in Arpeggiator tool within FL Studio, or some plugins also have an arpeggiation function. However, I'm gonna go with the easiest and most accessible way, which is the FL Studio tool. So this is what the Arpeggiator tool looks like in FL. And what we're gonna do is click any number of these presets, just spam through them until you hear something that sounds kind of cool and sparks some new ideas. You could even combine this second technique with the first, create an arpeggiation, then throw on a mixer preset. That will give you an even crazier sound. I know it's a simple little trick, but I barely see this technique being used, and you'd be surprised how effective it can be. However, if you're still sitting there stuck on an idea, it's time to bring out the big guns. And this technique, bro, there's a reason I've left it till last. If you stuck up until this point, you're about to get let in on some real sauce. So what you're gonna wanna do is go over to this window on the side, go up to the top and click plugins, then type in layer. Drag that onto the channel rack. Now you're gonna wanna get some one-shots. I'm hoping you already have some on your computer, but if you don't, you can just type up free one-shots on Reddit. And you're gonna pick 3 at random, maybe a bass sound, a guitar sound, a key, a pad, and drag each of them onto the channel rack. Click on this layer to open it up. Select the one-shots you've chosen by holding Shift and clicking on them like this. Now when they're selected, go back over to the layer and press Set Children. Turn this fade knob up a little bit so there's no clicking. And now when you play chords, it's gonna mesh all of these 3 sounds together in a random order and create some super cool textures or even presets. This is very similar to Analog Labs multi-keys, but this is a free method for doing it. I recommend messing around with the random and the sequential and just seeing what sounds you can create. I personally find this method to be way more inspiring than just clicking through presets on a VST, because this way you have a lot more control. If one of the one shots that you've chosen just isn't hitting, you can swap it out instantly. You can also combine this method with the 2 methods we've talked about previously. And if after doing these 3 methods, you're still struggling to finish your sample, now maybe it's time to go back and modify the initial idea. Remember that initial MIDI that I threw a mixer preset on? It sounded like this. Well, the final sample ended up coming out like this. The core idea is almost unrecognizable, and that's the point. That's how this process goes. But if I'd given up with that core idea, I never would have ended up with the sample. And that's the main point that I'm trying to make throughout this video. Rules are made to be broken. If you can't finish an idea and you've really tried, park it and remember to come back to it later. But I highly recommend you try to set a precedent of not leaving ideas unfinished. And once I started doing this, I found myself making so many more samples and better samples at that. If you know of any other methods that you use to finish your ideas, chuck them down in the comments. I'm keen to hear. Maybe I'll make a part 2 with some of your guys' suggestions. And remember, you can grab that mixer preset kit I was talking about on sale for the next 3 days only. Top link in the description. If you learned something or this video helped you in any way, make sure to throw me a like and subscribe. If you got any questions, feel free to send me a DM. And that's us. I'll see you in the next one.